I always thought betrayal would feel like a sudden stab in the back, sharp, quick, shocking. But I was wrong. It's not a clean cut, it's a slow, suffocating realization that seeps into your bones, making you question everything you ever knew. It started on a Thursday night. I was supposed to be gone until Sunday. A work conference, nothing special, just another mind-numbing corporate event that kept me away from home. But things wrapped up early, and instead of wasting my time in some overpriced hotel room, I decided to surprise my wife, Monica. Monica always loved surprises. At least, I thought she did. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. No welcoming porch light, no sound of the TV murmuring in the background like usual. Just silence. But Monica's car was there, parked neatly in the garage, exactly where it should be. I let myself in quietly, grinning as I pictured her reaction when she saw me. Maybe she'd jump into my arms, tell me she missed me. Maybe we'd spend the night curled up on the couch, just the two of us, like we used to before life got so distant. But then, as I stepped inside, something felt off. The air smelled different. Not just Monica's vanilla candles or the faint scent of her perfume. Something deeper. Muskier. The unmistakable scent of another man's cologne. My stomach twisted. I glanced around. The living room looked untouched, but something was missing. The framed photo of our wedding that usually sat on the mantel, gone. In its place was an empty patch of dust, as if it had been moved recently. My eyes darted to the side table where I kept my keys and wallet when I was home. That was different, too. Subtle changes. Small, but enough to set my instincts screaming. Then, I heard it. The shower was running upstairs. The sound sent ice down my spine. My feet moved before I could even think, my body acting on some primal, gut-wrenching instinct that told me, something is wrong. I climbed the stairs slowly, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, steam curling out into the dim hallway. And then, through the crack in the door, I saw him. Henry. My best friend. The man I'd trusted with my secrets, my struggles, my wife. He stepped out of the shower, a towel slung low around his waist, water dripping from his hair. Comfortable. Casual. Like he belonged there. And behind him, in the reflection of the bathroom mirror, stood Monica. She was wrapped in my bathrobe, her damp hair clinging to her flushed skin. Her lips parted in surprise, eyes widening when she saw me standing there. For a second, nobody moved. Then Monica did what she does best, she lied. Arthur, she breathed, like I was the one in the wrong. Like I had walked in on something normal. I can explain. Explain. I stared at her, at Henry, at the steam curling around them like a scene from some twisted romance movie. My best friend had just stepped out of my shower. In my home. With my wife. And she wanted to explain. Henry didn't say a word. He just smirked. Like this was some kind of joke. Like he'd already won. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. My first instinct was to lunge at him, to wipe that smug look off his face with my bare hands. But then Monica's voice cut through the fog in my brain. Arthur, it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. The most overused, pathetic excuse in the book. I exhaled slowly. My entire body was tense, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. Then tell me, Monica, I said, my voice disturbingly calm. What is it? She hesitated. Just for a second. But that second was enough. A real innocent person wouldn't have hesitated. And then, the lies started spilling out. It was just a mistake. I wasn't thinking. I was lonely. It just happened. Every excuse, every desperate attempt to twist the truth, as if she could somehow erase what I had just seen with my own eyes. But the worst part? she wasn't even panicked. She was just annoyed that she got caught. I turned to Henry, waiting for him to say something, to at least pretend to be ashamed. But he didn't. He just shrugged, like this was inevitable. Like he had always been waiting for this moment. Something inside me shifted. This wasn't just a one-time betrayal. This was planned. This was deliberate. Monica didn't trip and fall into Henry's arms. This wasn't some drunken mistake. They had made a choice. I didn't say another word. I just turned around and walked out. Monica called after me, her voice rising in desperation now. "Arthur, don't be like this. We can talk about it." Talk about it? I slammed the front door behind me and climbed into my car. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I sat there, staring at the house that I had built with my own hands. The house that was supposed to be our home. A home where my best friend had been sleeping with my wife. The rage threatened to consume me. But I swallowed it down. Because anger was useless. Revenge, though. Revenge was a different story. I drove for hours, my knuckles clenched around the steering wheel, my mind stuck in a loop of Monica's voice, soft, pleading, full of lies. It was just a mistake. I was lonely. We can talk about it. Talk about what, exactly? How she had been sneaking around with Henry behind my back for God knows how long. How she had brought him into my house, into my bed, into my life, like I was some kind of blind idiot. I pulled into a quiet parking lot and shut off the engine. The silence pressed against me, thick and suffocating. I needed to think. I needed to calm down before I did something reckless. Because this wasn't just about her. This was about him, too. Henry. My so-called best friend. The man who had stood beside me at my wedding, toasted to my happiness, promised to always have my back, only to stab me in it. I squeezed my eyes shut, exhaling sharply. No. I wouldn't lose control. I wouldn't let them win. Because that's what this was. A game to them. They had played it well, thinking they were untouchable. But they weren't. And now, I was going to show them just how much of a mistake they had made. By the time I walked back into the house later that night, Monica was waiting. She had cleaned up. Put on fresh makeup. Fixed her hair. Like she thought looking good would somehow undo the damage. The second she saw me, the act began. She threw herself at me, sobbing, clutching at my shirt like a desperate woman in a tragic romance movie. "Oh my God, Arthur, I thought you weren't coming back," she cried. I didn't move. I didn't hold her. I didn't even breathe. "I made a mistake," she continued. "A terrible mistake. But it didn't mean anything. I swear. It was just. I don't know, I was feeling lost, and Henry was just there. He took advantage of me. You have to believe me. Henry. Took advantage of her." I almost laughed. Almost. She must have noticed the way my body stiffened because she pulled back slightly, her red-rimmed eyes searching my face. "Arthur, please. It's you I love. I'll do anything to fix this. Anything." I filed that away. "I need time," I muttered, my voice rough, like I was barely holding myself together. I don't know how to process this, Monica." Her face lit up, hope blooming in her expression. She thought she was winning. That I was buying her performance. And just like that, the power shifted. Because while Monica believed she was convincing me to stay, I was already planning my next move. The next morning, while Monica was in the shower, I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Bank statements. Emails. Text logs. Proof. I had access to our shared accounts, so it didn't take long to find what I was looking for. She had been funneling money into a private account for months. My money. The money I worked for. The money I had assumed was going toward our life, our future. Instead, she had been saving up to leave me. Probably planning to run off with Henry. I stared at the screen, my pulse thundering in my ears. She wasn't just a cheater. She was a thief. I took screenshots of everything, saved them to a flash drive, then did what had to be done. I pulled every cent from our accounts before she could. Within minutes, our joint credit cards were frozen. The safety net she thought she had. Gone. Then, I sent copies of her secret financial records to my lawyer, a woman named Jessica who specialized in divorce cases where one spouse tried to screw over the other. I need a strategy, I told her over the phone. Jessica hummed. Well, Arthur, I can tell you this much, you're about to walk away from this marriage with everything. By the weekend, I had set the next stage of my plan into motion. The thing about small towns? People talk. And once I planted the right seeds, the gossip spread like wildfire. Henry and Monica weren't sneaky enough to cover their tracks. There were texts, photos, little clues they had left scattered in their arrogance. I sent them to the right people. Our mutual friends. Monica's coworkers. Henry's own girlfriend, who had no idea what had been going on behind her back. By Sunday, everyone knew. I could feel the shift. The way people looked at her differently. The whispers at the grocery store. The disapproving glances at the gym. Monica was losing control of the narrative. And when she realized it, she panicked. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV when she stormed into the living room, her phone clenched in her shaking hands. How could you do this? She snapped. I raised an eyebrow. Do what? She shoved her phone in my face. Everyone knows. Henry's girlfriend dumped him. My boss pulled me aside and asked if my personal life was interfering with my work. I just got a text from my mother calling me a disappointment. What did you do? I looked her dead in the eye. Nothing, Monica. You did this to yourself. Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since this all started, she had no lie to tell. I leaned back, watching her fall apart. Good. She had spent so long believing she was in control, so long believing I was some blind fool who would never see through her games. But now. She was the one scrambling. She was the one losing. And I had barely even begun. Later that night, while Monica sulked upstairs, I checked my email. A new message from Jessica. Subject, divorce strategy, next steps. I opened it and skimmed through the bullet points. Freeze assets, done. Gather more evidence of infidelity, ongoing. Prepare court filings, in progress. Leverage her financial misconduct for full asset control, likely success rate, 90%. At the bottom, Jessica had left a note. Arthur, if we play this right, Monica won't just lose the house and the money, she'll lose everything. She won't see it coming. Let me know when you're ready to move forward. I smirked, closing my laptop. Monica thought this was just about catching her in a lie. She had no idea what was coming. The days that followed were eerily calm. Monica was still trying to pretend everything was fine, like the walls weren't closing in around her. She thought she could fix this. She thought she still had control. I let her believe that. But behind the scenes, I was tightening the noose. On Tuesday morning, I watched from the kitchen as Monica rummaged through her purse, her phone wedged between her ear and shoulder. No, there must be a mistake, she was saying, her voice forced into that polite but panicked tone she used when she was about to lose her temper. I just tried to make a payment, and my card declined. Can you check again? I sipped my coffee, waiting for the inevitable. She went silent. Then, what do you mean the account is frozen? Her hand tightened around her phone. No, that can't be right. My husband, she stopped mid-sentence, and I saw the exact moment it hit her. Slowly, she turned to face me. "Arthur." I raised an eyebrow. "Yes." She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Did you happen to make any changes to our bank account?" I took another sip of coffee. "Oh, yeah. I moved my money out." Her smile faltered. "You what?" "I moved my money," I repeated. "Figured I'd keep it somewhere safe. You know, considering everything." Her face turned pale. I could practically see the gears turning in her head, trying to find a way out of this. But the mortgage is due. The credit card payments. "I'm sure you'll figure something out," I said, setting my mug down. "After all, you were already saving up to leave me, weren't you?" Her breath hitched. She knew. She knew that I knew. And for the first time, Monica Holt had nothing to say. The next move was Henry. He had been too quiet since everything blew up, and that meant one of two things. 1. He was trying to cut his losses and get as far away from Monica as possible. 2. He was desperate and looking for a way to regain control. I decided to find out. That night, I sent him a text. "Arthur, we need to talk." He didn't respond right away, but an hour later, my phone lit up. "Henry, what's there to talk about?" I smirked. "Arthur, about how you and Monica planned to screw me over. About how you're probably regretting it now." This time, he answered immediately. "Henry, I don't know what she told you, but I had nothing to do with that." "Lies." "Arthur, you sure about that?" "Because I have proof." I let that sit for a minute. "Henry, look, man, I'm not trying to get involved in this drama." "Too late for that, buddy." "Arthur, then maybe we should clear things up in person. Meet me at Murphy's bar tomorrow night." He hesitated. "Henry, fine. 9 p.m. Perfect." Murphy's was a hole-in-the-wall kind of place, dimly lit, quiet. The kind of bar where people went to drink in peace. Which is why Henry's unease was so obvious when he walked in. I was already at a booth in the back, nursing a beer. When he spotted me, his eyes flicked toward the exit, like he was debating leaving, but after a second, he squared his shoulders and walked over. He sat down across from me, leaning back in his seat like he wasn't worried. "All right," he said, feigning confidence. "Let's talk." I set my phone down on the table, tapping the screen to show a folder labeled Monica plus Henry. His smirk faded. "What is that?" "Screenshots," I said. "Texts. Emails. Photos. Everything I need to prove what you two have been up to." His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. I let the silence stretch, let him feel the weight of it. Then, I leaned in. "You're screwed, Henry." His jaw tightened. "I don't know what you think you're doing, Arthur, but Monica. Monica doesn't give a damn about you." That shut him up. "She's been using you, Henry. Just like she used me." I leaned back, watching as doubt flickered across his face. "Think about it. She never planned to leave me until she had the money, right? But guess what? The money is gone." He tensed. "What do you mean, gone?" I smirked. "Exactly what I said. I moved it. Monica. She's broke now." A muscle in his jaw twitched. Oh, this was good. "You know what I think?" I continued. "I think she's gonna look for a backup plan. And since I'm not available, that leaves you." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "You're full of shit." "Am I?" I tilted my head. "Think about it. Do you really think she was planning a future with you? Or was she just using you as an escape until she had something better?" He didn't answer. I stood up. "You should ask her." See how loyal she really is when she's got nothing left. Then, I walked out. By the next afternoon, things had escalated. Monica had finally figured out that Henry was unraveling. I knew because I saw her on the phone in the kitchen, pacing furiously. "You don't get to just abandon me now, Henry," she snapped. "We're in this together, no, don't you dare hang up on me." She stopped, listening. Then, "Fine. You want to be a coward? Go ahead." She ended the call and threw her phone onto the counter, breathing hard. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Trouble in paradise? Her head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "What did you do?" I shrugged. "Nothing. Maybe Henry just realized what we all knew, you're not worth it." Her lip trembled, but I saw the anger behind her tears. She had lost him. She had lost the money. And soon, she was going to lose everything else. She just didn't know it yet. That evening, I called Jessica. "It's time," I told her. She sighed. "You sure? Once we file, there's no going back." I glanced across the room where Monica sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a dead look in her eyes. "I've never been more sure of anything." Jessica smiled. "Good. Because after this, Monica Holt is going to regret the day she ever met you." I filed for divorce the next morning. I didn't tell Monica. Didn't warn her. Didn't give her a single second to prepare. I wanted her to feel it suddenly, the way I had felt the weight of her betrayal when I found Henry stepping out of my shower. And it worked. I was at work when I got the first text from her. "Monica, what the hell is this, Arthur?" She must have seen the court notice. I ignored her. Then came another. "Monica, you blindsided me. You didn't even talk to me about this." As if there was anything left to say. Another. "Monica, you're making a mistake. We can work this out. Please, just talk to me." I almost laughed. She had destroyed our marriage, spent months sneaking around with my best friend, stolen my money, and only now, when the consequences hit, did she want to talk. Pathetic. I turned off my phone. Let her sit with it. Let her sweat. When I got home that night, Monica was waiting. She was dressed in one of those soft, flowy dresses she knew I liked, her hair perfectly curled. The scent of her perfume filled the air, a scent that once made me weak. Now, it disgusted me. "Arthur," she said softly, stepping toward me, eyes glistening with well-practiced tears. I walked right past her. "Arthur, please." She grabbed my arm, forcing me to stop. "We don't have to do this. I know I hurt you, but..." I yanked my arm free. "There is no but, Monica." She flinched. Her mask was cracking. "You cheated on me. You lied to me. And you stole from me. You don't get to stand here and act like we can fix this." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Then, her tactic shifted. "I did it because I was lonely, Arthur. Because you were never here." I smiled. "Right. It's my fault you slept with Henry." Her lip curled. She had hoped that would work. "You know," I continued, "I used to think you were smart. But you weren't even careful. You didn't cover your tracks. You left everything out in the open, like you thought I'd never notice." Her face paled. "You really thought you were going to take everything from me, didn't you?" I stepped closer, watching her shrink back. "You were going to run off with Henry, start fresh, and leave me with nothing." Silence. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that I had figured it all out. But I wasn't done. "Except Henry isn't sticking around, is he?" I smirked. "You were his side piece, Monica. And now? You're nothing." I expected her to yell, to throw a tantrum, to sob uncontrollably. But what she did next shocked me. She laughed. A soft, bitter sound. "You think you've won, don't you?" she murmured. I narrowed my eyes. "I know I have." She tilted her head, studying me. Then she whispered, "You should check your voicemail." A chill ran through me. I pulled out my phone, heart pounding as I listened to the first message. "Mr. Holt, this is Officer Daniels from the County Police Department. We received a report of a domestic disturbance at your residence earlier today. Please give us a call at your earliest convenience." I pulled the phone away from my ear, staring at Monica. She smiled. "You called the cops on me." Her grin widened. "Oh, Arthur. Did you really think I was going to let you win that easily?" By the time I got to the station, Jessica was already there, waiting for me. She looked up from her phone as I walked in. "I assume Monica's behind this?" I nodded. "She called in a false domestic violence report." Jessica exhaled sharply. "She's desperate." We sat down with Officer Daniels, who looked unimpressed. "Mr. Holt," he said, flipping through a file. "We had a report from your wife that there was an altercation at your home this morning. She claimed she felt threatened." I forced myself to remain calm. "Did she say I hurt her?" "No," he studied me. "But she wanted a restraining order." I leaned back. "Did she show any proof?" Daniels pursed his lips. "No physical evidence. No witnesses. Just her word." Jessica smiled. "Well, officer, I'd like to submit counter-evidence." She pulled out a USB drive. I took the liberty of compiling Monica Holt's financial records, history of infidelity, and her recent attempt to coerce Henry Parker into siding with her. Daniels frowned, plugging it into his computer. Minutes passed. His expression darkened as he clicked through files. Finally, he let out a low whistle. "This paints a very different picture." Jessica nodded. "My client is being targeted in a smear campaign. Monica is trying to manipulate the legal system because she knows she's losing." Daniels turned back to me. "I believe you, Mr. Holt. And since there's zero evidence to support her claim, I'll be filing a report on this incident." I nodded. "And what happens if she does this again?" Daniels sighed. "If she falsifies another report, we'll have grounds to charge her with filing a false police report and obstruction of justice." Jessica smiled. "Good." I stood. "Thank you, officer." As I walked out, I felt lighter. Monica had fired her last shot. And it had missed. By Friday, things had gone from bad to catastrophic for Monica. Her lawyer had dropped her case. Her mother had cut her off financially. She had nowhere to go. That evening, I came home to find her packing. She didn't look up as I stepped inside. "Congratulations, Arthur," she muttered, shoving clothes into a suitcase. "You won." I leaned against the doorway. "That's funny. I don't feel like I won. I just feel like I got rid of a disease." She flinched. But then she exhaled, straightening. She turned to face me, something cold in her eyes. "You're going to regret this." I raised an eyebrow. "Am I?" She smirked. "One day, Arthur, you're going to wake up and realize you'll never be able to trust anyone again. You'll always wonder if the next woman is lying to you. If she's waiting for the perfect moment to betray you. You think I destroyed your life?" She took a step forward, lowering her voice. "I ruined your ability to love, Arthur. And that? That's worse." I stared at her, letting her words sink in. Then, I chuckled. "Nah." Her smirk faltered. "I already won, Monica," I said, stepping past her. "You're nothing now. Just a memory I'll forget in a few months." Her jaw clenched. I walked away. And that was it. Monica Holt left my house that night, dragging her suitcase behind her like the dead weight she had always been. And I finally breathed again. The night Monica left, I sat in my quiet house for the first time in years and felt nothing. No sadness. No regret. Just relief. She was gone. And she wasn't coming back. But the war wasn't over yet. Monica had tried everything: emotional manipulation, false accusations, even calling the cops on me. None of it worked. So now, she had one last battlefield left, the courtroom. She had lawyered up, hoping to salvage whatever she could. I could only imagine the story she had fed them, probably some nonsense about being a neglected wife whose cruel husband had abandoned her emotionally. Too bad I had proof of everything. The day of the hearing, I walked into that courthouse feeling calm. Confident. Because the truth was on my side. Monica, on the other hand. She looked like hell. Her once pristine appearance was gone. No flawless makeup. No fake, confident smile. Just a woman who had lost everything and knew it. She still tried to fight, though. Her lawyer stood, straightening his tie as he began his weak attempt at painting me as the villain. "Your Honor," he began, his voice dripping with insincerity, "my client has suffered greatly due to Mr. Holt's emotional neglect. She was trapped in a marriage with a man who was distant, unavailable, and dismissive of her needs." I watched Monica, waiting for her to glance at me. She wouldn't. Her lawyer continued, spinning some tragic fairy tale about how Monica was the real victim. How she had made a mistake, but had tried so hard to fix things. I kept my expression blank. Then, when it was our turn, my lawyer, Jessica, stood. And she tore Monica apart. "Your Honor," she began smoothly, "my client, Mr. Holt, has been the victim of a calculated deception. Not only was Mrs. Holt engaged in a long-term affair with his best friend, but she was also funneling money from their shared accounts into a private account for months." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Jessica continued, pulling out the stack of evidence we had gathered. "We have bank statements showing Mrs. Holt's financial misconduct, text messages proving her infidelity, and, perhaps most damning of all, an attempted bribery of a key witness." That part hit hard. The judge's expression darkened. "Bribery?" Jessica nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Holt attempted to bribe a witness to change their testimony. Fortunately, that witness chose to report her actions instead. She placed the report on the judge's desk." Monica's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "And Monica?" She looked like she was about to throw up. The judge glanced at her. "Mrs. Holt, is this true?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because everyone knew the truth now. The judge didn't even take long to decide. "In light of the evidence presented, this court rules in favor of Mr. Holt." I exhaled slowly. Jessica kept going. "Your Honor, given Mrs. Holt's clear pattern of deceit and financial misconduct, we request that my client be awarded full ownership of the marital home and all assets within it. Additionally, we believe Mrs. Holt's claim to any portion of Mr. Holt's military pension should be denied." The judge nodded. "Request granted." Monica's head snapped up. "What?" she whispered. Jessica didn't stop. "Furthermore, given Mrs. Holt's reckless actions and falsification of claims against my client, we ask the court to recommend an investigation into potential criminal charges." Monica gasped. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to die. The judge sighed, rubbing his temple. "Mrs. Holt, you should consider yourself lucky that we are not pursuing contempt of court charges against you." Monica shook her head rapidly. "No. No, please. Enough." The judge's voice was final. Bang. The gavel hit the desk. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Monica caught up to me. I could hear the desperation in her footsteps as she ran to me. Arthur, wait. I didn't stop. Arthur, please. Please, just listen. I turned, staring at the woman I once thought I would spend my life with. Now. She was a stranger. Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't feel anything for her anymore. I have nothing left, she choked out. I lost everything. The house, the money, Henry, she swallowed hard. I can't do this alone. I tilted my head. You should have thought about that before you slept with my best friend. She sobbed. But I just smiled. Goodbye, Monica. Then I turned and walked away. A month later, Monica was gone. She had left town, too ashamed to stay. Henry. Also gone. I heard rumors that he tried to move back in with his ex, but she had already moved on. So now. They were both nobodies. And me? I was finally free. The first night alone in my house felt different. I walked through the rooms, my rooms, finally rid of Monica's presence. The weight of her betrayal was still there, but it didn't define me anymore. I had survived. And I had won. One evening, months later, I was at a coffee shop, reading. A woman sat down at the table next to me. She glanced over, smiling. Good book, she asked. I looked up, meeting her eyes. For the first time in a long time, my heart didn't feel heavy. I smiled back. It's getting better.